Okay, Rabbi Say, Shovavim, third week. Let's get rolling. Okay, so we spent the first 2 weeks in Chatzitzas, and we finished, obviously there's all more and more to do, but we finished almost everything I wanted to say. We have a little bit more, maybe I'll say it at the end of the share if we get to it. We're going to start off with those 5 preliminary days from when the woman becomes a nida until we're allowed to start counting the Shiva Nekieim. So, which in the Shulchan Aruch is Kuf Tzadi Vav. So as I said last time in the beginning, and I'm just going to reinstate, this time we're working backwards a little bit, because in the past I've had some experience of giving the Shovavim Shiur, and I started from the beginning and didn't make it to the end. This time I'm starting from the end, and we're working back to the beginning. So we did Kuf Tzadi Ches last time, and which is the Chatzitzas, and now we're doing Kuf Tzadi Vav. Okay, so let's go for it. So like this. Okay. So we all know the concept, very simple, that Shiva Nekieim, which is part of the process of becoming Tahar, because we're makbid that to treat all women as a potential Ziva Gedola, it's part of the Minig B'nai Yisrael that we always wait 7 days, even on a Tipas Dam Kechardal, which isn't the Iker Din Midaraisa, but we were all the B'nai Yisrael and Makal upon them to do it, and ended up becoming the Takanas Reb Zera, that we wait these Shiva Nekieim, even when there was a little kesem, even when there was a little, she would be merely a nida, not a ziva. If you know what I'm talking about, great. If not, don't worry. So we need Shiva Nekieim. Now, for a day to count as the Shiva Nekieim, it needs to be naki. Naki from what? So we all know the simple basic meaning. It means naki from dam. There's no dam nida, and that's one of the Shiva Nekieim, which will be part of the process of bringing a woman from the state of tama to the state of tahara. Okay. Now, something that not everybody realizes or knows, there's something else that could stop those Shiva Nekieim. That is called a piletus shichvas zera. That's if zera goes out of the woman's body, meaning we're talking about zera that went into the woman's body via tashmish, and now if it goes out via dripping out, which is a normal thing that happens, it usually doesn't take that long for it to occur. But if at any point during the Shiva Nekieim there is some of that zera that will come out of the body of the woman, that will mess up that day of the Shiva Nekieim. So it's actually, unlike blood, which will say on the 5th day in theory, there would be blood on the 5th day, that would mess up the entire Shiva Nekieim. If there was piletus shichva zera, some zera that went into the woman's body via tashmish would come out of the body on, let's say, that 5th day, so that would mess up the 5th day of the Shiva Nekieim. Now, there's some discussion in the Rishonim whether that is only a factor in Hilchos Tumah V'Tahara, or is it also a factor in Isser L'Bayla. And L'maisa, we come out and we're nayig that is a problem even Isser L'Bayla. So, in that, what's negated to us on Hilchos Nida of Isser L'Bayla, we will say that zera that comes out of the woman's body will mess up the Shiva Nekieim. Okay, so far so good. Now, therefore, if there is a time that zera would come out, obviously it will mess up the Shiva Nekieim. Chazal go a step further and say, and this is a very, very reasonable gezerah, that any of the time where we suspect that zera might come out of the woman's body, we are going to discount those days, and those days cannot count as the Shiva Nekieim. Why? It's very possible that a little bit will come out of the woman's body, and she won't notice, which seems to be a very reasonable chashash. A little bit of zera is going to come out of the woman's body, she won't notice, it will mess up one of her Shiva Nekieim, and she will never know about it. And guess what? It doesn't stain in the way that blood stains. A little blood comes out of her body, it's very easy to spot. a little bit of zera comes out of the woman's body, it'd be much more difficult to spot. So even if she was wearing levanim, it would cause a problem. And therefore, very reasonably, they were geyser that any day that there is a chashash of this zera coming out of the woman's body, that does not count as Shiva Nekieim. Okay, how long do you have to wait? How long do you have to be choishish? So, based on different ways we learn the Gemara, there's some Rishonim that say it's only 3 oinos, 3 12-hour periods, a day and a half. But based on the Rishonim that we paskin like, it's 3 days, 72 hours. It's a 72-hour period that we are choishish. Now, what does that mean? That we are choishish for 72 hours of zera leaving the woman's body? Now, we're not only choishish. What if it leaves after 4 days? What would be the din? So we actually say that after 4 days it's fine. It only has its potency to mess up the Shiva Nekieim in those 3 days. So even in theory, if it was in the woman's body and it would come out 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days later, that would not be a problem. The zera has the potency of messing up the Nekieim in the first 72 hours. What exactly does that mean? I think it's one of those things we just have to accept as it is and as it says, because I can't give you a clear, logical explanation to why in hour 71 that same zera is potent to mess up the Shiva Nekieim, whereas later it's not potent to mess up the Shiva Nekieim. That's just what Chazal say. We don't have a clear, logical explanation behind that, but if that's what Chazal say, that's what Chazal say. Okay, fine, weiter. So, seemingly from where we are up to, you would need 72 hours from Tashmish in order to start the Shiva Nekieim. Now, as we know, the Shiva Nekieim are 7 complete days. They're not half a days. So really what's going to work out is you're going to need 3.5 days. Why? Let's just play this out.
We're talking about to be able to start counting.
To be able to start the Shiva Nekieim. I'm going to point it out now. I'll point it out again. I'm going to probably point this out a couple of times. We're only talking about when the dam of the woman has stopped. Now it happens to be the Metzias is most women see blood for 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And some depending on each woman for their own situation, but 5, 6 days are the real normal numbers. So usually, so far what I'm saying, 3.5 days, that's not going to be applicable to most cases in most women. However, there are times that it could be applicable. For example, after a kesem, it could be applicable. Or there are times that some women have short periods. There are also other cases where some women have, based on abnormal timing, their period is messed up based on whatever medications they're taking or something of the sort. And right now they are having long periods and then short periods, and it happens. Or there are certain people, which we're going to get into later when we discuss, have ovulation issues, and they actually take medication to shorten their period. So there are scenarios where it's going to apply, and lots of scenarios where it will apply. But it's true in the standard case of a woman who's going to bleed anyways for 5, 6 days, she won't have the paleta shichvas zera issue, but she'll still have the dam issue. And just because paleta shichvas zera is not an issue does not mean that the dam is not an issue. The dam will still be an issue even if the paleta shichvas zera is not an issue. Okay. Okay, so let's go for this. So, assuming that dam is not an issue, we're putting that aside, it's after a kesem or whatever it may be. Now, you're going to need, from what we said so far, 3.5 days. Why 3.5 days? Because let's think about this for a second. Let's say it was Sunday that she had Tashmish Sunday night, which is halachical Monday. Correct? So, now she has to wait half a day until the end of Monday, and then she counts Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. and she does her hefsek at the end of Thursday, and the first day of the Shiva Nekieim is going to be Friday. Thursday night, Friday is going to be the first day. So that's 3.5 days. And only then she would be able to count the Shiva Nekieim. For the Sfardim, the story's over. That's all you have to do. That's it. Very simple. Very different than the Ashkenazim. Surprising, huh? But the Sfardim have this, that's it. Story over. No more gezeras. We're good. You have to count what they call what the Shulchan Aruch calls 4 days, which I'm going to tell you is, on a practical level, 3.5 days. And then, from Tashmish, if the woman didn't have Tashmish for the 3.5 days before she saw this let's say Kasam, she could start the Shiva Nekieim that night for the Sfardim. For the Ashkenazim, it's not as simple. The Ramah brings down a concern where Choshish, perhaps the woman is going to see Dam a little bit after Shkia. Let's keep it on that Sunday night, right? Going to see Dam a little bit after Shkia on Sunday night. So does Monday count? If it's after Shkia Sunday night, does Monday really count? No. Right? Monday would be the half a day. It wouldn't count as a full day.
What happened?
She saw Dam Nida. She had her period. Sunday night, 20 minutes after Shkia.
Tashmish on Sunday night, right?
Oh, Tashmish, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. You're right, Shkoyach, thank you. I appreciate it. You're right. I said the wrong thing. She had Tashmish Sunday night, 20 minutes after Shkia, let's say. 15 minutes after Shkia on Sunday night. Right? But so right now, would Sunday night count as would it count as a half day or as a full day? Monday, I'm saying it's called the halakha Monday. That's a half day, correct? But what is she going to think? She's going to think I had Tashmish before Shkia. If she really had Tashmish before Shkia, then what's going to be the half a day? Sunday. And Monday is going to be the first of the full days. So she's going to count Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as the full days, and do a hefsek Wednesday night. But really, it's possible she's going to be put to Shich V'Zera, after she does that hefsek, at 10 minutes into Thursday, it's still going to be within those 72 hours. She'll be put to Shich V'Zera, and that's going to be potent. And that's going to really mess with the Shiva Nekieim. She's going to think she had the Shiva Nekieim, and therefore she's going to end up going to the mikvah with Sheish Nekieim, not Shiva Nekieim. And the mikvah won't work, and problems. Yeah?
Even b'diavad.
Well, definitely won't work midarabanan b'diavad. You might want to start saying that really she was only a nida and she wasn't a ziva gedola, and therefore midaraisa it should be good. Midarabanan it for sure doesn't work. All right? So, based on that concern, the Ramah brings down the minhag, and that we have to count even an extra day. The minhag is, he brings down the minhag Ashkenaz, Medina Seinu, B'Makom Seinu, whatever his exact lashon is, Medina Seinu, I think, is that in our place, the Ashkenazim, we have to keep an extra day. And if you keep an extra day, even if she messes up before Shkia, after Shkia, we're still good. We have a buffer of extra day. So instead of waiting 3.5, which Shulchan Aruch terms is 4, we're going to wait 4.5, Shulchan Aruch terms 5. And it's going to be the half a day that you saw, plus 4 additional days, and then you start the Shiva Nekieim. And that's how we all, when we all got married, we all learned, you count 5 days. So that's how we get to those 5 days. That is the first chumrah. Then the Ramah brings down a second chumrah that seemingly developed after the first chumrah. That he brings down a chumrah of and he also it's brought down by the Or Zarua, that's the earliest source. Or Zarua was the late Rishon. So that's the earliest source for this minhag. That we are geyser a case where you didn't have tashmish up to a case where you did have tashmish. What does that mean? What does that translate to? That means we're going to start counting not from the time of tashmish, but we're going to start counting from the time of the re'iyah, the time that she saw the blood. So if she saw the blood, Sunday afternoon, so Sunday is going to be her first day, even though she didn't have tashmish since Wednesday. But Sunday afternoon is going to be the first half. Sunday is going to be the half a day, and then you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or the full days. Thursday night she go to the mikvah. She can start the Shiva Nekieim. And obviously, once again, I'll add, we're talking about where there's no dam, because if Poita Shechvazer is going to mess with the Shiva Nekieim, dam will certainly mess with the Shiva Nekieim. And now, based on this chumrah, we have 4.5 days from the time that she saw blood, and I don't care whether it's a re'iyah proper or it's a kesem or whatever it is. Now, if we stop and think about what we just said, that is a tremendous chumrah. And I wanted to point out, the Ramah says, after he brings down this minhag, he says, Ve'ein l'shanos, and don't change it. That's the minhag, and don't change it. I think the reason why the Ramah, this is my own shot, I think the reason, it's not completely unusual for the Ramah to say Ve'ein l'shanos, but I think what drives him to say Ve'ein l'shanos and don't change the minhag is because a lot of people are going to learn up the sugya and say, come on, really? Meaning, these two chumras on top of each other, it's seemingly unreasonable. What, you're going to be chayshish that she's going to have tashmish and then become a nida, and it's all going to be after Shkia, while she thinks it's before Shkia? It sounds like a little much. But Lamaisa, I think the Ramah acknowledges that it's a little much, but he says a minhag is a minhag, and a minhag in Klal Yisrael, we can't veer from the minhag, even if it seems too much for us. Too bad. That's the minhag in Klal Yisrael. We don't change minhagim, and that's what we do. The Sfardim are much more mekel. Now, I would have made an argument, obviously, when the Ramah says Ein l'shanos, it's Ein l'shanos. I would have made an argument we should keep one or the other. I think, for example, the Gezerah before Shkia, after Shkia, added on a day, that's pretty reasonable. And I also think the Gezerah of a woman's going to get confused. Like, did she have tashmish that day, or was it the day before, or was it that day, or
doing the math?
You get confused. I think both of those gezeras are individually reasonable. The two gezeras on top of each other are pretty wild. And as I said, there's even Rishonim that say all you have to count is a day and a half. And I'm going to add on to that, there's even some Rishonim that say that's only if she's like laying down the whole time. If she stands up and walks around, obviously the zera is going to go out, and it's not a problem. We're not going like those Rishonim, but it's just a tremendous chumrah. But l'maisa it's minhag Klal Yisrael, and that's how we follow. But it's pretty wild. Fine. L'maisa ein l'shanos. But l'maisa, on the practicalness of this, and I think the Beis Yosef even says, if I remember correctly, is there's not so many nafkaminas for the normal scenario. In the normal scenario, a woman's anyway is going to be bleeding for 5, 6 days. 5, 6 days. I would say 7's a little bit long. 5, 6 days is very normal. So if a woman's anyway is going to often be bleeding 5, 6 days, or for sure 4, the chumrah doesn't take such a major effect on most women. Because most women are waiting that amount of time anyways. Okay. Now, as they pointed out, this waiting period is applicable whether it's a nida proper, whether it's a kesem. Now, and I think we did the math on this. Okay. Now, what if she's in Suffolk? If her period began before or after Shkia? Let's say she's in Suffolk. Did my period come before or after Shkia on Sunday? Either, she wasn't sure if her watch was right, she saw the dam, but she looked at it, it was 4 minutes after Shkia. She doesn't know whether it came before, it came after. She's in Suffolk. I mean, there's 100 different cases. She was somewhere without a watch. There's 100 different, variations of how her Suffolk could have happened. So let's say she's Suffolk. Let's go back to our Sunday night. She's Suffolk if it came before Shkia or after Shkia on Sunday. So the question is, when does she count? What is the half a day? Is Monday the half a day or is Sunday the half a day? What do you think? Any opinions?
Go to Kula?
So we're going to go to Kula. You know why? Because we already took this into account. We added on a day for unclear Benish Masha situations, unclear Shkia situations. And if we already added on a day for unclear Shkia situations, before Shkia, after Shkia, we added on for that, so it would be ridiculous to go add on another day. We already took this into account. That's why we have the extra day. And if that's why we have the extra day and it's a suffix, we're able to count Sunday as the half a day, and then we can start counting from Sunday night, Monday as the first day. So that's, that makes sense. Now what about this? The next case is she's not in Suffolk, but she knows that it was during Banish Mashas. I know. When was it? It was 7. I looked at my clock. She realized starting right now, it's 7 minutes after Shkia. That's when it started. What would we say then? So the Poskim say, the Chut Shani and the Bari Shulchan, they're Mekel. For Banish Mashas, we're Mekel. Because that's also included in that extra days for Banish Mashas ticket situations. This is a little bit more of a chiddush if you think about it. Because halachically, we generally treat Banish Mashas like the following day.
Oh, it's a suffix.
It is a suffix. I agree it is in Hilchos Nida, let's say for example, in doing bedikas and stuff like that, and usually when it comes to shaylas of vestais, for example, if you have during Banish Mashas, we count it as the later day. It is a suffix, but Lamaisa and Halacha, especially in Nida, we're always going to go with Shkia as our time. There happens to be the Machlekes, but the Psak Halacha everywhere is Shkia. So if that's the case, but this is a little bit of a chiddush, but I think, like for example, the Chut Shani and the Bali Shulchan here, I think they're understanding that we have a big chumrah on our hands. This is how I understand them. We have a big chumrah on their hands. We don't need to extend this big chumrah. So we have room to be mekel to include that Bein HaShmashos into the extra suffix day, and Memela, we're able to have that count, even though it was after Shkia on Sunday night, we count Sunday as our half a day. Fine. Ramosha says that we're only mekel if it was within the 9 minutes after Shkia. And by the way, there's different poskim that throw out all different numbers. However many minutes after Shkia, you got to know where you are. The numbers that Ramosha Feinstein says after Shkia are not applicable in Yerushalayim, and the Debetzina Rav says after Shkia, it's not applicable in Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim, it's a much shorter time from Shkia to Tzeis is much shorter than it is in New York. Ramosha talks about 15 minutes in some places and whatever. 15 minutes is pitch dark over here. There's nothing to talk about. You're not going to have that. So what are you going to have in Yerushalayim? Probably 18 minutes is probably what you're going to have in Yerushalayim. Maybe there's some places who want to give you 30. But Pashas, 18 minutes. In New York, you might be able to get quite a bit more than that. In each place, I think in certain places in England, it's very long, right? And like Gateshead and whatever, it can be very, very long, the Banish Mashas period. So each place is its own story. Ask your local Zmanim guy. Yeah? Now, Rav Vosner is Machmir, and he says you don't get a minute after Shkia. And I believe Rav Elyashiv is also Machmir and doesn't give you a minute after Shkia. He doesn't let you off with this heter. And I know Rav Vosner writes it's the minhag of the Peiskei Eretz Yisrael not to give you a minute. That's what he says. But I told you something earlier, that I told you the Chut Shani, who's from Nissim Karelitz, Rav Vosner's neighbor. They were both from Bnei Brak at the same time. They were actually, in my mind, they always pair the two of them together. I think a lot of people do. Rav Vosner and Rav Nissim Karelitz. They were the two big poskim who were, in Bnei Brak. So the Chut Shani says, you have the whole bin Hashmashis. So it's interesting that Rav Vosner says all the Peiskei Eretz Yisrael, whatever, but the Chut Shani clearly did hold of this. So Sarachin exactly. Okay. Now. The Shach brings down interesting question. Let's say she was Makabel Shabbos already. She was Makabel Shabbos. She davened Meir, Kabbalah Shabbos. She davened Meir Shabbos. She lit candles. The works, but it's still before Shkia. She maybe made Kiddush, right? And it's before Shkia, and then all of a sudden she sees Dam. Do we count Shabbos, Friday? Do we count Friday as the half a day because it's before Shkia, or do we count Shabbos as the half a day, or the first day, as some would call it? Because the Ma'aser for her, it's Shabbos. So the Shach brings down that we still count Friday as the first day. So that's going to be another nice kula. And by the way, the same thing would apply if on a regular day, if she davened Ma'ariv because she did the plug thing. I know most women don't daven Ma'ariv, but I'm just saying that if she was davening Ma'ariv and she did daven Ma'ariv, right? She davens mincha before plug every day, and she davened Ma'ariv right after plug. An hour before Shkia. Still, it would count as the earlier day. The earlier day would be her half a day, or as most people call it, the first day. Now. Yeah. Now, a woman is only required to wait these 5 days if she was tahar beforehand. But if she was tameh beforehand for whatever reason, as we're going to discuss in a second, then she doesn't need to wait these days, because obviously you don't have to be geyser atu tashmish if tashmish wasn't allowed. So therefore, let's say she was in the middle of a Shiva Nekieim and she saw dam. And she was asked her husband beforehand anyways, so therefore she could start counting. That doesn't interrupt. Obviously it interrupts the Shiva Nekieim, but there's no preliminary period for Palatus Shechva Zera. Or another example, which is, let's say she saw a kesem a day before, or 2 days before her proper period started. Right, she saw a kesem, which is matamar, and then 2 days later the proper period started. You start counting from the kesem, not the proper period, not the full-fledged re'iyah, because it starts from whenever she became usher, not from when her official re'iyah started. Happens to be according, in the case that I just mentioned, by Vestas, we're going to be counting from the re'iyah. But in terms of waiting the 5 days, we're going to count from the kesem. Okay. What if, here's an interesting shayla, she saw a kesem, she saw a kesem, and they separated, she separated from her husband, they were in Suffolk about this kesem, they didn't know what to do, right? And then, that was on Sunday, let's say, she saw a kesem Sunday morning, separated from her husband. Then, he went to work, he went to Koil, whatever, and Sunday night he showed the Rav the kesem, and the Rav said it was the Rav said it was Tara, this kesem, and she had already at that Sunday night, 5 minutes before he went to the Rav, she saw Dam Nida on that Sunday night. So do we start counting from the Sunday night, which we're going to call Monday for easy sake? Are we counting from Sunday or from Monday? Are we starting from the kesem? The Rav said it's Tara. The kesem wasn't an issue. But they separated because they weren't sure about what the halacha should be. So the Shiva Levi says we start counting from Sunday, because once they had a kesem that they were in Suffolk about, then it was also for her to be with her husband, and therefore we're going to start counting from the Sunday. Whereas the Badei Shulchan argues, he says the Gyola Milsalama Freya, that kesem was nothing, and she wasn't really also to her husband. And if she wasn't really also to her husband, you start counting from Monday.
If the Gzeres is what's going on in her mind, then what do we care, the halacha, whether she was mutter or husband?
So the body, I agree with you in Svara. I agree in Svara we should be starting from Sunday, because as far as they were concerned, Tashmish was Asar. However, the body of Shulchan is going to say that the Gezerah is from when she became Tameh. This was a tais. I don't care. It's the Badei Shulchan is saying it's not what's all in her mind. It needs to be Metzias based. And this was a tais and a Metzias they were Torah. They could have had Tashmish. They just made a tais. But I happen to be more noita like the Shevet Levi, like Rav Osner, but I hear the Badei Shulchan. Okay. And it happens to be when it comes to Vestas, we're going to be counting not from Sunday, we're going to be counting from Monday. We're going to be counting from when the period really started. It happens to be it's a machlekes, so I shouldn't jump to say that. But I would say, no, when it's a tar one, sorry. If it's a tar, yeah, everybody agrees we're going to start from Monday. If the kesem was a tar kesem, sorry, everybody agrees we're going to start Vestas from Monday, but the Shevet Levi would say the 5 days start from Sunday. Akala B'Pashtus does not need to wait these 5 days, because since she's not married, therefore there's no gezerah of Tashmish. There's some people say, like, you know what? Just count the 5 days with the kala. Don't get her confused. Just count it. The nice is very little halakhic ramification anyways. Very rare for a kala to get a clean bedika earlier than the 5th day anyways. And if it's going to be a situation where the kala can get a clean bedika after 4 days, and if not, it's going to be a kala nida, trust me, we're going to be meko. If that situation would come up. Okay. Now, what if the couple, there was they got a bedika, they looked at it, they said, this looks pretty bad, or no, kesem, she's more, whatever, whether it's bedika, kesem, whatever it is, they got something, they thought it looked bad, so they go and they bring it to the Rav, and the Rav says, mutter, tar. The Rav looks at it, the Rav says tar. Psak, tar. And now they go home and they say, you know what? We're going to be machmir. And we're going to, come on, it looks red. I don't know how this Rav said tar. It looks red.
This is not supposed to happen.
No, people shouldn't be doing this. But that doesn't mean that people don't do this. There's a very big difference. There's something with learning halacha we should all know. There's a very big difference between what should be happening and what does happen. And it's just the metzias. We quoted the other week a Rashba that was discussing a woman whether with dyed hair, whether that counts as a chatzitza. And the Rashba says it doesn't count as chatzitza. And you saw some of the places we're handling. Well, would she go outside with, let's say there was roots showing of her natural color. Well, if she would be embarrassed to go outside with the roots showing, then it would be a chatzitza. Embarrassed to go, hello, you're supposed to cover your hair. But that's true. But, we still have a shayla in the hand based on what's going on. So yes, I do agree. When the Rav gives the psak and says tar, it should be tar. But what if they take it on as a chumrah? Then the poskim, I believe the poskim say that does not count. Because you know why? If something happened, if that whatever, this couple could change their mind. They could end up changing their mind, and who knows what's going to happen. Therefore, we're going to start counting from the actual Riyah proper, and not from that Chumrah which the Rav was Matara. it would be a little bit different if the Rav said, based on the psak of Dayan Fisher, it would be okay, and based on Rav Moshe, it would be a problem. But I'll let you be semich on Dayan Fisher. And by the way, what I just described is like half the bedikas out there. Dayan Fisher would be matar and Rav Moshe would be madama. So let's say he said that, and they said no, we want to be machmer. That already is a real thing. Meaning, if the Rav said that there's a Chumra Dika opinion, and they want to go like the Chumra Dika opinion, because he did very confused Rav. He did half a shimush by Dayan Fisher, and he did the other half a shimush by Rav Moshe, and he came out very confused. Yeah, he totally got both mahalchim, whatever way. But so that Rav who gave that thing, and so, then it would start from, if you were machmer like Rav Moshe, then it would start, because that's not just the case of we decided that you picked a shita and halacha. L'chayra, I didn't see that written anywhere, but that would be my personal Natiya. Now, what if they weren't together because that was the vest? That day was Yom Vest, and that's why they weren't together that day. So, according to Rav Moshe and the Chut Shani, they're makel to count that Yom Vest as the first day. The Shevet Levi is in Suffolk whether we could count that vest as the first day. L'maisa, the place where we makel, and if there was a vest which was before the Riyah, that could be counted as the first day. And by the way, this is a very common shayla. If you think about it, it's going to happen all the time. You're going to have a vest which is in the amount of time where you can start counting. Very reasonable to happen, because that is when you expect. Around your vestes is often when you see dam, and therefore the mitzvah we can be makel to count that. What if it wasn't a complete vest, but it was a time where you're being makbid for the or zarua or the crazy placey? The crazy placey to make the oyin bein the full 24-hour period, or the or zarua to count the 12-hour period before your vest. What about those? We'll call those chumras. If you see at that time, so it kind of depends on how you go. I saw that the idea basically is if you treat the or zarua or the crazy placey as ikar din. It's not a chumrah that I'm being machmer, but this is the halacha. That is ikar din. Then you can count it. But if you view the or zarua and the crazy placey, or one of these chumras, you view it as a chumrah, then memela you would not be allowed to count it as additional days. Marian Kohen says you can't count it, but I think my understanding would be depending on whether it's ikar din or whether it's a chumrah. For example, if which is very rare to happen, mikvah night would fall out on that or zarua, would you be pushing off the mikvah, or would you be overriding the or zarua? Now, most people, the shayla never happened. It's unlikely to happen, but there are different poskim that will come out differently on that psak, and it kind of depends on whether we're going to treat the or zarua and the crazy like chumras or like ikar din. Okay. What if you saw on the day after Yom Kippur, or you saw on the day after Tisha B'Av? Now, because we know Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av are also b'tashmish. Do we start counting from the day after, or do we start counting from Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av? Now, if you stop and you think about the shayla for a minute, you realize there's kamat, no nafkamina. Why? When did the woman see? If she saw on Yom Kippur, right? So the day of Yom Kippur is going to be our half a day. Before Yom Kippur started, that was a regular mutter day. This is the Yom Kippur day, or this is the Tisha B'Av day. That day's asur. And if she saw, an hour after Yom Kippur, so what does Yom Kippur have to do with anything? There was Yom Kippur. There was an hour in the middle which was mutter, and now this after Yom Kippur is going to be your half a day. What does Yom Kippur have to do with anything? So what's the case going to be? If it was after Yom Kippur in Benish Moshes? Well, we already said, outside of the post-Eretz Yisrael, we already said that Benish Moshes time will give you the day before. So it's after Benish Moshes, but it's still your Yom Kippur because you haven't made a Havdalah yet? Well, we won't say that much of Shabbos. Let's say you make Havdalah 2 hours. You didn't make Havdalah yet. It's right now. It's 2 hours, 3 hours after Shabbos. You didn't make Havdalah. It's not counting as Shabbos anymore. It counts as Sunday. I don't care if you didn't make Havdalah. So there's no real nafkamina in the Shelah. Whether you... And that, it's pretty much no nafkamina. Maybe there's like the minute of Tosefes Shabbos, or the minute of Tosefes Yom Kippur, that you're... Not much of maybe it's after Benish Moshes and it's the minute of Tosefes. Maybe is what to talk about. There's not much to really talk about Lamaisa. Okay. This is one that's very negeya. Post Avelis. During Avelis, the woman has the Isser of Tashmish. So post Avelis, when do we start counting from? So Ramosha is Mekel, that you're allowed to count one of the days of Avelis. He doesn't let you count more of the days of Avelis, but he lets you count one. Why? I think the reason behind Ramosha is he thinks this minhag of the Ramah that we're being machmir from is a big chumrah. So that extra day thing, I'll let you go. I think that he wasn't so quick to rely on the Avelis, and the reason why Avelis might be different than, let's say, Vestos is because the Isser is not a Hilchos Nida based Isser. It's an Isser coming from a different area of Halacha. So therefore, that's why some of the Poskim aren't so quick to, like the Badei Shulchan won't let you rely on the Avelis day, because it's a side point. It's not a Nida Dika din, it is a Avelis Dika din. Fine. Lamaisa Moshe's Mekel could probably be Mekel for that one day. This is an interesting halacha, a little bit surprising in din. If a woman finds a kesem after the mikvah, she was ready to toivel, but she didn't yet have tashmish with her husband, and she finds a kesem, so we let her count Shiva Nekieim without waiting another 5 days. Which it seems, if you compare that to what we've done so far, that seems a little bit surprising. Because before we were any hechatimsa of tashmish, even if you didn't have tashmish, we were geyser. Over here, we let her off the hook. I'm not sure exactly why. It seems to be, I guess we don't want to be overly whatever on her, but we let her by without the...
She'll remember, she's been Tomei for a long time. She went to the mikveh, she'll remember there was nothing else. And then
very good. Meaning if the vart is a vart of confusion, geysering non-bia to bia, you make it confused. That's very good svara. I like that. That's very good. Because you know what Ruven's saying? That the whole gezer was, I don't remember did I have tashmish on Tuesday night or Wednesday night. The woman, when she comes back from the mikvah, she's not going to say, did I have tashmish yet or did I not? That she's going to know. And therefore, there's no reason to make that gezerah. That's good. Very good. I like it. Good. Okay. Now, what do you do by a woman that is missing her ovulation? Now, most women, their cycles are, 30, 31, 32 days or whatever, 29, 30, 31, 32. That's how long. And there's plenty of days from after she becomes tar in a normal process. She has, a good 4 days of ovulation, 5 days of ovulation, where she could potentially get pregnant. But let's say you have a woman who's not getting pregnant, and they go, what's going on? They check it out, or she already knows because her periods she has a 25-day cycle. And if she has a 25-day cycle, she's very likely missing her chance to become pregnant, because by the time that she's tar, she's no longer at that time in her period that she could become pregnant. She's missing her ovulation. So what do we do with such a woman like that? Is there any room for kula? So number one, the first thing that a woman should do before the halachical kulas, there are medical things to do. To either to extend your ovulation or whatever. I'm not a professional in this. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the first thing is try the medical, see if that works. Now if the medical doesn't work, then the second option is the Chazon Ish says, drop the 5th day. I know it's a big chumrah. There's a big tzarech. Drop it. In a great makom tzarech, you could go against the minhag. Ramosha says that he wants to drop, but he wants to drop the other chumrah. He says start counting from tashmish. Don't count from riyah, but count from tashmish. And I guess they should be careful on the last day or two before she's expecting to see dam, not to have tashmish that night, to be able to count from then and be able to get a bdika early and after the 4th day or whatever it may be. Because once again, this woman will either be having naturally a shorter amount of days that she's bleeding, or she's going to take medication to be bleeding for less days, and therefore she'll be able to get her ovulation. The Chut Shani, he has an interesting one. There's a halacha that says that if a woman declares herself, says, I am tamei, so as far as we're concerned from a halachic standpoint, v'safra law, she counts, it's her call. She says she's tamei, she's tamei. And we treat her halachically as tamei, so when she says she's tamei. So he says, 2 days before she's likely to get her period, she says, I'm tamei. And then she's tamei, and we can start counting from then. So it's a pretty clever trick of the Chut Shani, but I would say that there is some issue with that, because if he knows about the trick, and they're in on it, so it's just a joke, it's a game, there's a concept called the Amsla, which, she can explain herself as to why she said it and get out of it. I think the Chut Shani, I find it hard to understand the Chut Shani, but I think it's clever, but l'maisa tachlis, I find hard to rely on it, because the husband's going to know what's going on, and then, you're not tricking anybody, okay. It's just a game, it's a joke. Okay. The Shiva Levi is very machmir. He doesn't want to go against any of his minhagim, and he says she would have to just be toivel every second month, and because then she's going to be in a state of tumah beforehand. I don't think not any place. I'm sure there's poskim in Bnei Brak that go like the Shiva Levi. I don't think most of the poskim around are going to be machmir like the Shiva Levi. And this woman who's trying to get pregnant, tell her to only go to the mikveh once every 2 months. We're going to rely on one of the other heterim. Fine. The poskim bring a kula in the name of the shla that. Like this, it's very interesting. If there's going to be a 24-hour period between chafifa, if waiting 5 days will cause a 24-hour period from chafifa to tefillah, then you could drop the 5th day. Once again, for the 10th time, as long as she's not seeing blood, but maybe the 3rd time actually, but as long as she's not seeing blood, you could drop the 5th day. So let's get an example. When's the example when you have 24 hours between chafifa and tefillah? So the most common example is going to be, Shabbos, no, you're usually not going to have that. Shabbos, you're going to do chafifa 2 hours before Shabbos and do the tefillah right at the beginning of Shabbos. What you're going to have it is, let's say you have a Thursday night for Yontif. So if Yontif is, halachical Friday is Yontif. So when is she going to do the chafifa? Thursday afternoon. When is she going to do this tefillah? Friday night. She needs to be titled Friday night, but Thursday's Yontif. So then, in such a case, that will be a 24-hour time period. Or for another example would be if she's Matzah Shabbos is her tefillah, and Matzah Shabbos is Yontif. So she's going to do the chafifa Friday afternoon and be titled Matzah Shabbos. Right? Or you have a 2-day yontif wherever you are, and the yontif is Monday, Tuesday, and it's a Tuesday night tefillah. But yontif, she's going to do Monday afternoon is going to be the chafifa, and Tuesday night is the tefillah. So if waiting 5 days will cause her to have to separate the chafifa to the tefillah by 24 hours, so she could drop the 5th day and count 4 days. That's the chumrah of the shla. The kula of the shla that the poskim bring down. What is the logical basis for this? This is a chumrah sha'asa de kula. Meaning it's not geshmak and halacha to separate from chafifa to tefillah 24 hours. It's just that what can we do? This is what we have to do. But if I could drop this huge chumrah of waiting that 5th day in order to be able to not have to separate chafifa to tefillah by 24 hours, then I'll do that. And the Baya Shulchan goes so far, and he says, if it's a 2-day yontif, let's say it's a Thursday, Friday, yontif leading into Shabbos. So when are you going to do the chafifa? Wednesday afternoon. For your Friday night, it's a 48-hour period. He says if that's the case, you could count 3 days. Obviously, it's usually not going to happen because the woman's usually going to see blood. But he says you count 3 days from the riyah, as long as you didn't have tashmish the day before. As long as you didn't have tashmish the day before, then you could count 3 days. Yeah, that's a kula of the Ba'al Shulchan with the shla. But if you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. And in general, this kula, the Torah Shlam says, it only applies if you didn't have tashmish the day before, whereas the Sidrei Tahara says it applies even if you did have tashmish the day before. The Chayr would be make like the Sidrei Tahara, but once again, as I pointed out before, you have to not be seeing dam. But Lamaisa, that's a situation where you can wait only 4 days. This is an interesting case. Let's say if I wait 4 days, there's a woman who's planned out an event, has the calendar set. My husband's going on a business trip in 11, 12 days. He's going to the Yarchei Kala in 12 days, whatever it is, right? He's going away. And if and I'll show you the example, which some of us will relate to very well. Some of us, the Americans will very much relate to this. The non-Americans will need a little explaining in a minute. But here's how it goes. In this example, so if by waiting 4 days, I'll catch my husband before he goes away, Moshe and the Shevet Levi says you're allowed to count 4 days. So what's the case that Moshe was talking about? So Moshe was talking about the bungalow colony. Now for the Americans, we all know how the system, the non-Americans, let me explain. There is a very common theme in America, specifically New York, where husbands go to the bungalow colony, they go up, let's say Thursday night, or Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and they're there for the weekend. The women stay there all week long in the summer. And then come Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, depending on who they are, they drive back to the city during, where they have their jobs, and that's where they spend the week. And there's a very common case, you see Ramesh is writing about it. It's been going on for 50 years plus, and this is a system that has been happening. So let's say, this guy has to go back on Monday morning to get to work. So, if she waits 4 days, she'll be able to be toivel Sunday night. And the husband could still be there. But if she waits 5 days, when is she going to be able to be toivel? Monday night. Husband's not coming back until Friday. Let's say a Thursday or Friday. It's going to wait another 5 days. Zatar Moshe, you count 4 days. How does he know? You want to hear his braya? That's beautiful. He says, when in a case where you have yontif, which causes the tefillah to be separated 24 hours from the chafifa to the tefillah, what do we tell the woman? Do we say, push off your mikvah an extra day so you can have the chafifa right before the tefillah? Or do we say separate it by 24 hours? So we say separate it by 24 hours. It's better to separate chafifa and tefillah than pushing off mikvah. We see that clearly. Now what's better, waiting 5 days or pushing off chafifa and tefillah? So we say you're better off waiting 4 days than waiting 5 and pushing off chafifa and tefillah. So if 4 days is better than a 24-hour separation between chafifa and tefillah, and a 24-hour separation is better than pushing off mikvah, tefillah, so if A is better than B and B is better than C, then obviously you're better off waiting 4 days than pushing off the tefillah. And that's Ramosha's Raya. But it's interesting, it wasn't really discussed beforehand, but Ramosha, and we hear the Shiva Levi as well, he believed very strongly in his power of Svara. He wasn't bothered by, why didn't I see this earlier? If the Svara works, if Ramosha liked the Svara, that's how he paskined.
Pushing off the beer after mikveh is synonymous with pushing off the mikveh now.
Well, we actually say, when the husband's not in town, we push off the tefillah. We don't let her be toivel if the husband's not in town.
Toivel and wait.
We don't let her. She waits until when the husband's going to come back, and then she's toivel. But Moshe has one thing that he says: you cannot do this more than once a summer. Why can't you do it more than once a summer? Because the mice, it's a minhag Klal Yisrael, and you can't just totally push off this minhag. Once off, it's a once-off exception that it happened, but you can't do this more than once a summer. You can't make a rule out of this, so to speak. Another interesting shayla is a woman who travels from New York to Eretz Yisrael. She started her 5 days in New York, and she's ending in Eretz Yisrael. She's ending at 7 hours early. Does she have to wait an extra day to compensate those 7 hours? So the mice of the place say, no, we're also going to include that in that extra day that we put in for the Beina Shemashes issue. We'll also put it in for that extra 7 hours. That will be included. What if a woman is in Suffolk, into which day her period began? Was it not the case that I discussed earlier where it was during Shkia? It happened in the morning. No sheikhs to Shkia. But now she turns around, she's holding, Wednesday. Was that Sunday or was that Monday that it started? I thought I wrote it down in my calendar, but I don't see it. So in such a case, we say once again, we can be making with that. That's part of the whole thing of we're not sure which day it was. Was it Sunday? Was it Monday? That's included. And we can be makel and treat that as a half a day. So these are the halachos of those 5 day period. I think I was expecting to have time to get into those chatzitzos that I left out before. I don't know, I'm looking at the time and I'm a little surprised, but we'll leave that for another week, I guess. But I'll fit it in somewhere. Don't worry. I'll just plant it in the back of my head. We'll see when we get there. And these are the halachos of Pileta Shikva Zera, where we wait 5 days, 4.5 days before starting our Shiva Nekieim. And once again, disclaimer again, this does not apply if she's seeing blood. We're talking about when there's no blood, when you can count the Shiva Nekieim. Thank you for listening. Good vach.